Ukraine has U.S. officials on high alert.
Still about 24 more hours of these cold winter temps, but by the time we get to the weekend, it'll all be a thing of the past. We'll have the latest from the Skywatch Weather Center.
And why the cost of breakfast may soon be going up.
The 4 states' most watched news starts now.
5 armed suspects flee, leading law enforcement on a chase overnight with speeds reaching 140 miles per hour. This is KOAM News at noon. I'm Tanya Bach. Topping our first 7 minutes, what started as a police chase in Miami, Oklahoma ends with all 5 suspects in custody. The chase began around 9 p.m. last night. NEO Campus Police, along with the help of the Miami PD, initiated into a high-speed chase with speeds reaching up to 140 miles an hour. The suspects were headed westbound on the I-44 Will Rogers Turnpike. The Craig County Sheriff says spike strips were used to stop the vehicle. A foot chase ensued and police captured 2 of the suspects. Authorities launched a drone with thermal imaging to allow officers to see in the dark. The remaining 3 suspects were located and arrested shortly after midnight. A Carthage man is back behind bars, facing even more charges as he tries to escape custody during a court hearing. Authorities say 21-year-old Jacob Jones appeared in a pretrial conference on Monday for a 2019 charge of tampering with a motor vehicle. During that hearing, authorities say Jones tried to run from the courtroom, but was caught by deputies and got into a struggle. 2 deputies received minor injuries. Jones is now facing 2 counts of assault of a law enforcement officer, property damage, and resisting arrest. Well, it was a rather chilly morning across the 4 states. Just a little bit. Michael joins us.
Here's a good thing about the cold front, though, Tanya. Our temperatures were still dropping even after sunrise, but now we've seen this front move all the way south into central Oklahoma and central Arkansas. So while we're not going to have a huge rebound, at least some sunshine stabilizes us. And we're already working back up to the freezing mark, 32 right there in Miami and Grove. We've got Joplin now sitting at 27. And even our towns up to the north right there that had dropped down to the teens earlier this morning. We were as low as 14. We had wind chills as low as 4 degrees, now into the mid-20s. Now, excuse me, not a huge afternoon warm-up, but much better than what we had earlier this morning. But remember, the coldest part of the week is yet to get on us. That'll actually be tomorrow morning. But here's the interesting part of it. Even though tomorrow is going to be our coldest morning, for the next several days, we're actually going to be pretty close to that average high where we should get to around 45 degrees. Still have the wind chill in effect, though, as it's shifted and moving in from the north. And so really very few 20s on the board, most places ranging between 15 and 18. As we put Future Track in motion, we got a chance for some flurries here that are going to pop up from Wednesday night into Thursday. But if you tell, this just cuts right through. It's going to be extremely light. Shouldn't even have any travel concerns with us. So let's talk about what we've got as far as tomorrow morning, because if we're going to talk about how low can we go, how about throwing up wind chills around 3 degrees? I'm not going to be surprised if we don't see a 0, even a negative number every now and then. So after we get through tomorrow morning, here's the best thing about our afternoon highs. Like we said, 45, so we're sitting right there really for the rest of the week. And then Tanya, Saturday and Sunday, we are still throwing up some 50s. I tell you what, though, they had some winter storm warnings just to the west of us. We're going to take a look at some of their storm reports and find out how we kind of lucked out precipitation-wise when I see you in a bit.
All right. Well, it's a rather... Russia is not backing down from its border with Ukraine. Russia, with thousands of troops in position, analysts say President Vladimir Putin could order an invasion at any time, which has the U.S. taking steps to help its NATO partners and possibly Ukraine. Skylar Henry has the latest from Washington.
With Ukrainian troops manning the front lines, the U.S. is preparing to step in if needed. Around 8,500 American troops have now been put on higher alert, ready to deploy at short notice to NATO countries in Eastern Europe.
This is about sending a strong message that we're committed to NATO.
NATO is reinforcing its eastern flank because Russia has 100,000 troops on the border with Ukraine. Moscow says it has no plans to invade, but many don't believe that. In 2014, Russian-backed separatists seized control of the Crimean Peninsula. This Ukrainian soldier says Russia won't stop. There is no negotiating with them. Here on Capitol Hill, the Biden administration will update House and Senate leaders today on the situation and is making plans to brief all lawmakers in the coming days. On Monday, President Biden had an 80-minute video call with European allies.
I had a very, very, very good meeting, total unanimity with all the European leaders.
In addition to putting troops on alert, the U.S. is sending $200 million in emergency military assistance and another shipment of military equipment. For its part, Russia says it's watching America's actions with, quote, great concern. Skyler Henry, CBS News, Washington.
Some lawmakers on Capitol Hill believe sanctions could slow Russia's aggressions, but for now, the Biden administration is focusing on diplomacy. Authorities at the Australian Open reverse a restriction after forcing fans to take off T-shirts supporting a Chinese tennis star. The ban on the "Where is Peng Shuai" shirts caused international uproar, with officials calling the message political and activists saying they will not be silenced. Peng Shuai disappeared late last year after accusing a top Chinese leader of sexual assault. Since then, she's only been seen in seemingly scripted appearances on Chinese state media. That's a look at today's top stories and weather in our first 7 minutes. Up next on KOAM News at noon, why consumers may soon feel the squeeze and a jump in orange juice prices. And later, we're making diner-style Salisbury steak in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen. It's a story that's affecting every American, the rising cost of groceries. Fruit and vegetable prices went up by 5% in 2021. That's according to government figures. And now orange juice may soon be in shorter supply, making breakfast more expensive as well. Manuel Bajorquez is in Utamilla, Florida, with more on the story.
At one of his groves outside Orlando, Brian Farina showed us what a healthy orange tree looks like.
That's what you want.
Yep, so this is what we want.
And what a tree plagued by citrus greening looks like.
So it kills it from the inside.
Yeah, all the roots are going to go first.
Wow.
So when you have no roots, you have no leaves, no fruit.
Some trees don't die, but produce oranges that are smaller, green, and have less sugar. Not as sweet, harder to sell, and bad for business.
There is no known cure for citrus greening. In fact, in groves like this one, it's safe to assume most trees have some degree of it. One telltale sign, the amount of fruit that's fallen to the ground or is unusually small.
Here's how hard Florida's orange crop is getting squeezed. At its peak, the state produced more than 244 million boxes of oranges a year. This year, it's forecast to produce only 44.5 million. Prices for orange juice concentrate rose nearly 14% in the last year amid strong demand during the coronavirus pandemic, and the low crop yield will likely drive prices even higher in 2022.
About 93% of the crop goes into juice processing. We've seen strong, stable demand for Florida orange juice, but we don't quite have the production that we had before.
The disease is threatening family farms like Farina's. His grandparents started it 70 years ago when they first put down roots in Lake County, Florida.
This is what you devote your life to.
Yep, all of our land is citrus, and so when you hear numbers like that, it is devastating.
The Florida Fruit and Vegetable Association says over much of the past 2 decades, the number of acres harvested for oranges in Florida has dropped by more than half as some farmers look for other work or sell their land to developers. Brian Farina, for one, says he does not plan to sell his land, but he has diversified what he grows. Manuel Bajorquez, CBS News, Umatilla, Florida.
Still to come on the KOAM News at noon, Mr. Food.
As we continue our week-long tribute to retro TV shows, today we're cooking up a comforting main dish that's sure to bring back those happy days.
But first, Michael Hayslip returns with your complete forecast.
Well, Tuesday's average high is going to put a little bit of a dent in our average high for the entire month of January. That's still not too bad. About 46 degrees and able to pull that off. Look at 1, 2, 3, we end up with 4 days below 40 degrees, 25 days in. I looked historically. I thought that skewed on the high side of the road. That is right smack dab in the middle of everything historically from Joplin Regional Airport as far as a January high temperature. Do want to point out, though, that after it moved through us this morning and our temperatures continue to drop all the way down to about 10 a.m., We didn't see any increase until 10 a.m. We now see that thing making its way all the way through really south central Oklahoma and now moving through central Arkansas as well. So here's where we stand over 7th and Range Line, 27 degrees. We're going to have those wind chills that are pretty much going to be stuck in the teens, low 20s all day long. And even with the barometer on the rise, we'll have a little incoming cloud cover for this evening into tomorrow. These are our actual temperatures, finally getting back to the freezing point. Down to the south right there, just about there in Anderson. And, you know, up to the north here, probably topping out about 30. Don't know if we'll see widespread 32s abound. But you know, compared to where we were when we were talking about it feeling like 3 and 4 degrees this morning, not too bad. And we knew this was going to happen when we had the KOAM News at Noon yesterday. We were just waiting on those arrows to shift. And once they did, say about 6, 7 o'clock last night, that's just when we went straight down. And so what does that mean for us wind chill wise? We're up into the teens. Remember, it's late January. That's really not too bad. And we've been able to escape any advisories, watches, or warnings associated with, number one, any cold temps. These are wind chill advisories up to the upper plains. Of course, they were talking about anywhere from 20 to 25 below zero. And then out to our west, a winter storm warning. Yeah, they actually had some snow that just will not leave portions of not only western, but also central Kansas alone. Didn't quite get to Wichita right here, but when we talk about the actual snow depth piled up all the way to the point where they were talking about having to close portions of I-70, not just because of the snow, but of course the high winds really reducing visibility as well. This is that cloud cover that I mentioned moving in from the west, but it's a dry air mass, so no precipitation involved with those clouds. And the clouds increasing really going to be a theme for the rest of our Tuesday, to the point where almost overcast skies here by the time we get closer to sunset. So let's go ahead and transition from Tuesday into Wednesday, because this is going to be interesting. Even with the mostly cloudy night, we lose that by the time we get to tomorrow. So sunrise tomorrow is going to be beautiful, but of course, what does that lack of cloud cover do? All that heat. Anything that's in the ground, it is a thing of the past, and our wind chills even colder than what we had this morning. But here's the positive part about Wednesday. Because we're going to get plenty of sunshine, we'll warm up just a little bit quicker, and our temperatures, whether it be wind chill or actual temperatures, are going to be better tomorrow afternoon than what they will be this afternoon. We'll see some more widespread 30s, especially along and south of I-44. And then as we get into Thursday morning, consistent teens for our wind chills gives you an idea that we're headed back up to the 50s by the time we get to the weekend. This is that storm system that we were talking about that was dropping off of I-70 right there. And while it's going to drop out of our frame really fast, it actually doesn't give up completely. It kind of stalls out, if you will, and then decides, I need to sprint across to the east. And that's why we could see some light flurries here, mainly Wednesday night into Thursday. But because this thing is moving so fast and doesn't have a whole lot of moisture in it, it shouldn't affect our travel at all. And we kind of see our clouds come and go through Thursday. Here it is right here. Watch this thing just kind of stop, and all of a sudden just decide, I think I took a wrong turn. And just boom, due east right through us, and then breaks up before it gets to the Mississippi. You'll notice a secondary shot of cold air that moves here on Friday. We're actually going to have an additional cold front on Friday, but it's not going to be anything like what we've had for Tuesday and Wednesday. The overnight lows are going to drop back to the 20s. I think that's the key factor in that. But then a great looking 4-state weekend to wrap up January and get ready for February, to the point where we're talking about mid to high 50s.
Yeah.
Just kind of counterbalance out where we talk about that average high for January. End of the month's just going to counterbalance what we'll have for the last 2 days.
There you go. Look forward to the weekend there. Light at the end of the tunnel.
There you go.
All right, thanks, Michael. We take this time to honor today's 4th-state hero, Specialist 4th Class Ray Skelton in the U.S. Army. The Seneca, Missouri native joined the Atomic Demolition Unit in 1968, stationed in Virginia. Skelton later served in the National Guard. To Specialist Ray Skelton, we thank you, our 4th-state hero. Today's recipe is one you'd find straight off a diner menu. We're making Salisbury steak in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen.
As we continue our week-long tribute to retro TV shows, today we're cooking up a comforting main dish that might have been served in the Cunningham's kitchen or at Al's Drive-In on the set of Happy Days. That's right, for 11 seasons, starting in the mid-1970s, America tuned in weekly to see what the Cunninghams were up to, including the antics of Richie and his best friend, Arthur Fonzarelli, better known as the Fonz. You know, I think what made the show the most successful sitcom of its time was that it highlighted the happier moments of the 50s and early 60s, hence the name of the show. So to bring back those happy days, today I want to share our recipe for Salisbury steak. After combining some ground beef with breadcrumbs, chopped scallions, an egg, a little mustard, and a bit of salt and pepper, we form it into patties and saute them until they're browned and cooked through. To take these over the top, we finish them with a homemade mushroom gravy, just like Mrs. C probably would have. To get the recipe for our diner-style Salisbury steak, all you have to do is stop by our website. I'm Howard in the Mr. Food Test Kitchen, where today we found a Happy Days kind of way for you to say, ooh, it's so good.
You can find this recipe along with a lot more good food from the Mr. Food Test Kitchen online. Just go to our website at KOAMnewsnow.com. Here's a look at our 4 state market prices.
Now, even though we've bumped up a couple of degrees since this morning, it's still going to be chilly for the afternoon. And remember, when the sun goes down and the clouds begin to part for tomorrow morning, it's going to be another frigid one, easily single-digit wind chills. I even think we'll throw up some zeros for early Wednesday morning. But after that, our afternoon highs consistently in the 40s all the way into a weekend in the 50s.
Take that.
All right. What do we have coming up tonight at 5?
Well, I'll tell you, multiple Southeast Kansas school districts discussed their decision behind reinstating mask mandates for the remainder of the week due to COVID cases in schools. And Carthage Food Distribution Center needs volunteers to assist with the growing demand. You join us for those stories. A lot more, of course. It's coming up today on KOAM News at 5.
All right. Thank you, Dal. Thanks for joining us for KOAM News at noon. We'll see you right back here at 5 o'clock.